It's Monday, the 30th of March, and we hear the news today that Dominic Cummings too has come down with the coronavirus symptoms. So it is there deep at the heart of government, and nobody with the death toll rising is underestimating that we're in a serious situation. But what has emerged over the weekend is a real dilemma, I think, and it's going to become a huge issue for the authorities. What is the lockdown for? What is the point of the restrictions that are being put on people? Is it to stop the spread of coronavirus, or is it to put us under house arrest? And I say that as somebody, I've now been here for 2 weeks. I got out of London the week before the lockdown came. I could see it coming. I hadn't had any time off since August, and do you know what? I was out doing things and enjoying myself. Since the lockdown, and even during that week before, I have been incredibly careful about human contact, incredibly careful about social distancing. That suits me. I mean, after all, I've been a smoker for 40 years. I've twice had serious pneumonia. So if I get this thing, it is likely it'll turn into pneumonia pretty damn quickly. So I don't think I've been irresponsible in any way at all. And yet, yesterday morning, back broadcasting on LBC, I made the point that in the previous 5 days, I'd been out 8 times. I'd been walking on 8 different occasions. 5 times early in the morning, really early in the morning, and 3 times, when I felt like it, I went out during the period of sunset as well. Now, I'm lucky, I accept that. I live in a semi-rural area. I rarely see anybody when I'm out walking. Used to see lots, but everyone now seems to have put Lycra on and prefer to be on bicycles rather than going out walking. So I don't think by going out twice a day, I'm being irresponsible in any way at all. And yet, some of the reaction I got on social media, you'd have thought I was a suicide bomber. People apparently are prepared to go along with some of the very strict, and can I say ridiculous, lacking in common sense interpretations that we've seen over the course of this weekend. And I'm talking, of course, about the Blue Lagoon. Up there in the Peak District, a natural beauty spot. And can you believe it? The Derbyshire police actually put black dye into the water to try and discourage people from going to the Blue Lagoon and having a swim. We've seen the use of drones to try and identify who dog walkers are. We've seen drones on the beaches of Newquay at Fistral Bay, trying to find out who it is that's going for a walk across the beach. What are these regulations for? Are they to keep us locked in our houses, or are they to keep us separated from other people? Frankly, Stephen Kinnock. Think about Stephen Kinnock, MP, drove up to London to see his father, Lord Kinnock, whose 78th birthday it was. There's a very good photograph. There's Kinnock's senior, Lord and Lady Kinnock, sitting on their front step. And there's Stephen Kinnock and his wife, Helle Thorning-Schmidt, the former Prime Minister of Denmark. And they're sitting at a table and chairs. They must be, 10, 12 feet away, I would say, from the elder Kinnocks. And they've come up to have a chat and celebrate the old man's birthday. What the hell is wrong with that? South Wales police said he was wrong to do it because it wasn't an essential journey. Where's the humanity in this? Are we really, as we were told by Jenny Harris yesterday, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, she said this could go on for 6 months. Are we not supposed to see anybody for the course of the next 6 months? This is impractical, it's ridiculous, and it's wrong. And whilst this was going on, whilst the police were pouring their dye into the Blue Lagoon, do you know what was happening at our airports? Well, I'll tell you. There were planes coming in from Italy, planes coming in from New York, 20 a day, 20 flights a day coming in from New York, planes coming in from Tehran, planes coming in from China, planes coming in from the COVID-19 hotspots all over the world, and not a single test being done on anybody. Not a basic temperature test, let alone an actual test to see whether people have got that disease. Nobody is put into quarantine. They're all allowed to travel on public transport and go home, and told once they're there they should self-isolate for 14 days. I mean, we are more than likely importing this disease into the country every single day. And then this morning, I saw some photographs from North Acton tube station. Guess what? Mobbed. Absolutely mobbed. So we allow flights in without checking anybody, crowded airports, very busy London Underground and other commuter trains all across the rest of the country, and yet the police are putting dye in the Blue Lagoon in case a couple of people go for a swim. We've lost all sense of perspective with this, and of course there's always a danger that if you give the authorities too much power, they will abuse it. Worse still are the hotlines that have now been set up so you can grass up your neighbour. That's right, if your neighbour takes the dog out twice for a walk in one day, you can ring up the hotline so the old Bill Plod can be round at a moment's notice. I mean, I'm sure there are some chief constables out there that would like to go the whole hog. You know, why not sort of take us back to East Germany in the 1980s so that kids can report on the transgressions of their parents? I say that ever so slightly tongue-in-cheek, but I'm quite sure there are some in the police that would want us to do that. Oh, and while we're at it, very important, the Metropolitan Police put out a video to say that if anybody saw a rise in hate crime as a result of the COVID-19 crisis, even if they didn't think a crime had been committed, they should report it to the Metropolitan Police so that they can investigate. I mean, you really cannot make some of this stuff up. And yet, there was Michael Gove, one of the few cabinet ministers and senior politicians who's well enough to appear on the television. There he was yesterday, almost relishing that the next move could be that our daily jog from the house could be confined to 30 minutes, or the daily walk from the house could be confined to an hour. Maybe his own neighbours will have their stopwatches ready just to make sure that there is full compliance. Now look, I've taken the coronavirus crisis very seriously from the start. Those of you that have followed me know I was appalled by herd immunity. I thought we had to buy the NHS time and we had to buy ourselves time so that perhaps we can find some medicine, some sort of antidote to this virus that'll make the symptoms far less bad than they are at the moment. And I want us to be responsible about social distancing. I really do think if people are having big house parties late at night, that is ridiculous. And I think the police are entitled, in these circumstances, to break those up. But to put us effectively under house arrest and to see chief constables and senior cabinet ministers telling us they're going to crack down further, even when we are being responsible and we are socially distancing. Well, I tell you what, I will not be put under house arrest by Michael Gove or anybody else. And I certainly won't do it until they stop flights coming in without people being tested and start putting a few more services on our trains and undergrounds to stop the overcrowding. Common sense is what is needed here, not house arrest for citizens. And I tell you, there's a great danger in this. And the danger is that people see these nonsenses, people see these abuses of power, and they start breaking the guidelines wholesale. In doing so, of course, the irony is they might actually start to spread coronavirus in a way that these regulations are supposed to stop. People will only respect the rules. People will only respect the government if the government and the police forces are seen to respect the people. And I think we're not very far away from that beginning to break down. And finally, China. Yes, China, you know, that magnificent, wonderful country where people live in great freedom. Oh, and by the way, of course, this crisis, this virus, has nothing to do with China at all. Any of you that say that are, of course, committing a xenophobic crime. No, China are the good guys. Absolutely. They've even made us think it could have been the Americans that spread this from the start. And now, of course, we have the lovely, cuddly, friendly Chinese, and in particular, Huawei. Yes, that telecommunications company that Boris Johnson wants to allow into our 5G network, even knowing that they operate directly for the Chinese Communist state. And they're now distributing largesse all over the world. in Italy, South Africa and elsewhere. They're dishing out protective masks and putting money into funds. Well, I have heard this afternoon from a very good source that the British government are on the verge of buying ventilators from China. I want to know whether this is true. I believe, given the source that fed this to me, that it probably is. Now, it wouldn't surprise me. After all, this government have given them British steel, a big strategic industry. It was David Cameron, of course, and George Osborne that put them at the heart of our nuclear industry. It's this government that wants them involved in our 5G network, despite the fact that actually kiboshes in many ways the prospect of trade deals with our friends in Australia, New Zealand, and the United States of America. And now, are we really to go to China and have them as our saviours in this moment, absolving them of all responsibility, painting them out to be the good guys? And I've no doubt, if we do buy those ventilators, the price will be that Huawei will stay part of our 5G network. I mean, why don't they I tell you what, just give the Chinese the keys to number 10. I mean, that's the extent to which I think the British establishment are prepared to sell us out to China. So we need very quickly from the government some truth about testing. Are we really now up to 10,000 tests a day, or is it, as some suggest, no higher than 7,000? Are we really going to be testing 25,000 people a day by the middle of April, or is that all make-believe? Are the amazing figures that Robert Jenrick gave us yesterday about tens of millions of face masks and other pieces of PPE for NHS staff, will they really be distributed to every hospital during the course of the next few days? And please, somebody inside government, understand you can't bully the British out of their freedoms. It's why in 1954, unlike every other country in Europe, we gave up identity cards. Do you know why? Because actually, law-abiding Brits just simply weren't prepared to carry them. Didn't want to live in a country where you could be stopped in the street and asked to produce your papers. And I don't think we're any different now. The vast majority of us recognise the fact this is a national emergency. We are all prepared to do our bit. You can tell that by the 700,000 people that have volunteered to get involved and help. But when it comes to social distancing, yeah, we get it, apart from a few idiots, we get it. But please, don't give the police excessive powers. Don't put us under house arrest. Otherwise, we'll lose all respect for you and for rules that could, applied properly, be very sensible indeed.